I want to talk about a bit more of a serious topic regarding the possibility of Vince McMahon returning to WWE in some capacity. And so as the WWE community knows, and if you're not familiar with WWE, there is an ongoing lawsuit and court case surrounding Vince McMahon of sex trafficking, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and rape. And as for where I stand on this, here, I'm not on anyone's side. I'm willing to give Vince the benefit of the doubt. At the end of the day, he is innocent until proven guilty. However, if these allegations towards Vince here are real and are true, I do want to take a second now to pay my respects to the victims of Vince McMahon and the former WWE employees that this had happened to and that they witnessed. And I am sorry this happened to you, and I'm glad that this information is now public. And if Vince is on the wrong, I hope that the justice system will give him the punishment that he does deserve. And now, putting that aside, the purpose of this video is how they can bring back Vince McMahon, which there's a couple of things I do want to bring up here, and there's a couple of things that have got me thinking as to why Vince will return to WWE. So I'll catch you up if you're not familiar with this case, but Vince stepped down in 2024 as executive chairman of WWE due to the allegations. From what I've read, Vince did not want to leave WWE. It was just due to the allegations, which means that he's still tied to WWE and he still does want to come back. So that's the first thing that I want to bring up. Second is Brock Lesnar. SummerSlam 2025, Cody beat John Cena, Brock Lesnar walked out, and if you watched today's SmackDown, Brock made another appearance, is going to be making another appearance next week on SmackDown. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because of the documentary series on Netflix titled Mr. McMahon. It's a very interesting documentary, but the final episode in particular, Brock Lesnar's name is mentioned. I won't go into the content of what is mentioned about him, but if you are curious to know, please go watch that documentary. Brock Lesnar has had sexual allegations put against him, but it was never proven that he did do it. Okay, and now, do I like the fact that Brock Lesnar is back? There's two ways of looking at this for me. For me, I have to separate the person from the character, because at the end of the day, when Brock Lesnar does come on stage, he is portraying a character that WWE wrote for him. Brock Lesnar as a person is completely different. So you have two different people here. And now, where I stand on his return is I think he is a great wrestler. As I have said in my past videos, I think he is a great wrestler. I think he has, done his time really well. Both in his prime and both now, he's still in incredible shape. However, let's just say for the sake of this video, Brock Lesnar is a sex predator and these allegations against him are true. Then bringing back a sex predator on TV, I don't like that idea. I don't like how they're paying him to be here. If I was running WWE, I would not bring him back. I would wait until all the heat has settled. I would wait till all of the information has gone quiet. I would wait till I get a confirmation from the legal department as to whether Brock Lesnar is found guilty or innocent. So the fact that they brought him back, it makes sense in terms of storyline. Brock Lesnar defeated John Cena in SummerSlam 2014. So it makes sense why they would want a rematch with Brock Lesnar. And plus, he's a big name in WWE. He's a well-respected character in WWE. So that is point two, that they've already brought back a sex predator with Brock Lesnar. And now that's what's kind of making me think that they are going to move in this direction of bringing Vince McMahon back. Now, saying that, however, WWE has publicly stated that they have no interest in bringing back Vince McMahon. They have no interest in Vince McMahon being in charge of WWE, being an executive, or having any creative control over the property. So that's a statement from WWE. But then that's not to say that he can't come out and be the announcer or can't make a special appearance. Why I think Vince McMahon will come back. This year they've been doing John Cena's farewell tour. John Cena was a part of Vince's era of WWE. And today's SmackDown, one thing that's become clear to me is they want to create a full circle effect for his character where there's no loose ends. And since John Cena isn't technically under Triple H's era of WWE, I feel like at some point, whether this will be John Cena's final match, I feel like he will want to thank Vince McMahon, for the opportunity, for bringing me aboard, for having faith in me as a wrestler, and for seeing a future for me. I feel like that's inevitable. So I do strongly feel John Cena's last match will have an appearance of Vince McMahon. Like, there are other rumors going around now that Vince might buy back WWE. And, I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there, that will be happy about that. Because, WWE, SmackDown, Raw, all of these big events, WWE wouldn't be what it is today without Vince. Vince really shaped the world of WWE as we know and love it now. So there is a lot of credit to give to Vince McMahon as far as what he has done. And I feel like as one last hurrah and one last, surprise for audiences, Vince McMahon, coming out and congratulating, Cena on his farewell tour. To me, that makes sense, but I want to take this even deeper. So, Triple H and Vince, they're related in real life. And now where I'm going with this is, I think Triple H is a big defender of Vince McMahon. There's been a few comments made from the guy, not directly about the allegations, but about Vince as a person. Triple H has a lot of respect for. And since Triple H is the one running WWE, I don't want to give false information here, but I want to say Triple H does not think Vince McMahon did it. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of comments out there surrounding that. But let's just go with that scenario. In that case, that he has nothing to lose. The audience, the crowd, they're going to go wild when Vince, comes through those doors to congratulate, to handshake John Cena. So, but then, looking beyond John Cena's final match, do I think Vince McMahon has a place in this company anymore? No, I don't think he does. I think Triple H and I think the current status of WWE, I think they are thriving. I think they've been doing really, really well for themselves. And honestly, I prefer Triple H's era of WWE rather than Vince. And I do want to get into that as well. Vince, this was in the Mr. McMahon documentary. He didn't treat his female wrestlers, that great. He encouraged the use of steroids to his wrestlers. So, he, and he wouldn't take, I guess, he wouldn't admit, there's a lot of deaths under Vince McMahon. There's a lot of people that died either from concussions or the use of steroids. Which, both of those, the steroids was Vince's idea. He encouraged it. He should be the one held accountable for that. But then at the end of the day, human rights, the person who's taking it, it's also their choice as well. As to if they do accept it or if they don't accept it. If they do accept it, then they are half to blame for this. Triple H, I recently got done watching WWE Unreal. And, that's a great Netflix series. That's a phenomenal Netflix series. Triple H's era is he has a lot more respect for his wrestlers, not only them as wrestlers, but also them as human beings. He applies simple human rights in his version of WWE. And, I think that's one thing I do prefer over Vince's, is I'm glad, that these wrestlers and that the roster of players here, that they are protected, that they do get, correct, medical use when required if anything does go bad. And I think that's something Triple H does really well on his side of things. Vince McMahon didn't do that the best. He didn't have respect for his wrestlers. At least that was my takeaway from the Mr. McMahon documentary series. Now I'm curious to know what everybody's thoughts are on this. So yeah, I don't think they will bring him back. Currently, as of right now, Vince still owns 50% of the shares from WWE. And I think until the court case is settled, I don't think there's anything that they can really do with Vince. Now I want to look at a couple of different scenarios here. Scenario one, being, by the time John Cena's final match comes around, Vince McMahon's, court case is resolved. Vince McMahon has been claimed, innocent. Then in that regard, I don't see any reason why they can't bring Vince into play in Cena's final match. If the court case is still ongoing by the time Cena's match finally rolls around, which at this current state, it doesn't look like it will be ending anytime soon. I think there's a possibility that they can still bring him back. Unfortunately, I really do feel like that's the case here. Seeing the crowd reaction for Brock, there's going to be a very similar crowd reaction, if not bigger, than Brock's for Vince McMahon if he does return. If these allegations are true, I don't want him to come back. I don't want Vince McMahon to be on stage. I don't want him having to do anything for WWE. I don't want them to give him any credit. I don't want people cheering him because if these allegations are true, he doesn't deserve it. Which, Vince would have a great lawyer team behind him. Multiple people have come out against him. It's not just, one or two people. There's a bunch of people over the years who have finally spoken out about Vince McMahon. And the documentary does suggest that there's other people involved whose names are going to be left unnamed. Yeah, this, I think with Vince, I'm, like I said, I'm not in the right to say whether he has or hasn't done it. I will agree. I will agree with the victims until the conclusion is clear. So I'm not really on anyone's side here. If there's enough evidence to say Vince didn't do it, then sure. If there's enough evidence to say that he did do it, which that is very interesting to me, because I do want to bring that up as well, that in the documentary, there's photos of text messages between Vince and one of his female colleagues that were working for him. And, I don't want to say what's in these messages. It is quite disgusting. It is quite repulsive. But if you're interested, I would watch that. But I would just say, viewer discretion is advised. Because it is a tough watch. Anything to do with sexual harassment and sexual assault. It's a very delicate subject matter. Because, you have two sides with completely different stories. And so I think it's a very messy situation. But, that's just some evidence that is public information now, that it is in that documentary. So at the end of the day, will Vince return? Time will tell on that, but I think with Brock back, it's inevitable that they're going to bring back another WWE legend. And I feel like if they do go that approach of bringing him back, I feel like it is going to be a once-off. Because from what I know, like I said, I've only recently come on to the WWE scene in the past couple months, so I don't know like everything, about the story and the lore and all of that about WWE. I'm still very much a newcomer. But I think Vince is John Cena is one of the only last people remaining that were under Vince's era. So bringing Vince out for Cena's farewell, that will officially create a full circle effect. There's been gratitude from both Triple H's era and Vince's era. Which, the idea of that is nice. So yeah, they're either going to bring him out on stage, or second, they're going to do the R-Truth approach, like what they did a couple of weeks ago, where Vince will shoot a video, it will come up on screen, saying, thank you very much, Cena, for your time at this company. You've been great, da da da. So yeah, there's a few ways that you can bring him back. I just don't want it. So, anyways, guys, this stuff I don't normally talk about on the channel, just because I don't want to piss off one side, or but I am very much in the middle here. I'm on no one side. I think both sides have evidence to convey. So yeah, we will see what happens. We'll see what the next few months of WWE hold. We'll see how this court case goes. We'll see how these allegations and what comes of it for Vince McMahon and his potential future at WWE. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. What did you think of today's SmackDown? Let me know what you think of the possibility of Vince McMahon returning to WWE. So let me know all your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below, guys. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.